And just like that, I became the face of Girls on the Run. Just like that. Just like that. That's my... Because the experts say if you can run 21 miles, you will surely be able to run 26.2 when it comes to race day. How about a round of applause for me, guys? I'm going to take that applause with me through the finish line. It's well-based. Keep the applause going for those of you who are going to continue to run your marathon. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Come on.
Perez, thank you so much for your time and everything you've done.
Good morning. I've been running so much, I almost just ran out of my chair and ran up on stage. But yes, I am running the Chicago Marathon in just 12 days. 26.2 miles. And you have to be asking yourself, why would anybody run 26.2 miles? Unless, of course, they're being chased by wild animals or something. But that's certainly not the case. So let me tell you my why. So this unique opportunity presented itself. And I knew it was a unique opportunity, one that I couldn't say no to. And when I shared it with those that I love, those that I trust, well, the truth is they laughed at me. They laughed at me. They told me there was no way that it could be done. But really my most inspiring reason for doing it is my family. You can see them behind me in the picture. That's my wife, Sarah, my 5-year-old Carter, my 10-year-old Gwen, and my 3-year-old Ava. You see, every day I live my life hoping to be an example for them. And I knew that this was going to provide me an opportunity to do just that. So you can tell I'm excited about this marathon. It's all I've been thinking about. You're going to hear me reference it today as I spend this time with you. But before I do, I want to ask you a question. What is the marathon in your life that you're currently taking steps forward on, or that you've been waiting to take steps forward towards? This is a big audience, so there has to be lots of you that perhaps can't think of anything. So let me throw out a couple of examples. Maybe it's going back to USF, go Bulls, to get that degree or that graduate degree, or perhaps I heard somebody earlier say they had just recently made a commitment to getting their PhD. Congratulations. Maybe it's starting that business that you've been wanting to. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's a lifestyle change, perhaps kicking some old bad habits to the curb, eating a little better, doing a little better exercise so you can feel better about yourself. Maybe it's a financial change, living within a budget so that you don't have to live under the umbrella of debt for the rest of your life. Whatever it is, I can promise you this: if you think hard enough, we all have these dreams, these desires, these ambitions, these goals, because they're within each and every one of us, these marathons, I call them. So speaking of marathon, let me tell you how this marathon came to be. So I'm picking my daughter up after school one day from a program called Girls on the Run. And I'm standing there talking to one of the coaches, and she says, hey, you know, I saw on social media, Facebook specifically, that you recently did a run, a big run. Keep in mind, the run that she's referring to was nothing more than a 10K, which is just 6.2 miles. Nothing like a marathon. But I didn't tell her that. I let her flood me with compliments. She told me I was a fantastic runner and what an amazing accomplishment. I was encouraging her, and really I was thinking it's about time somebody has recognized all that I do around here. But then the conversation changed. The conversation changed when she said, you know, you would be perfect. Perfect for what? I asked. She said, you would be perfect. How would you like to be the face of Girls on the Run Tampa Bay at the Chicago Marathon? Yeah, Simon, that's the same look I had on my face. I was thinking, if you only knew what was going in my mind, I was thinking to myself, there's no way. I don't have the time. I don't have the commitment. It's going to be incredible. There's absolutely no way. I'm never posting anything on social media ever again. That's what I'm thinking. And then I was thinking, I bet you if I don't run it, I bet you she has to run it. So she's trying to pawn this off on me. So as I'm getting ready, as I'm preparing to say thanks but no thanks, I look at my daughter and she's got that look in her face. Parents, you know the look. When they want a friend to sleep over or something, right? And I knew at that moment that there was just no way that I could say no. So I politely accepted the invite and said I would be honored. And just like that, I became the face of Girls on the Run. Just like that. That's yeah. Thank you. Yep, those are the girls that are encouraging me to finish this. And so the 20-minute ride home was one of the best ride homes ever. I had never felt more positive. My daughter was texting all her friends, saying, "You're not going to believe it. They're planning a bake sale." She's finding me couch to marathon apps to download, and it was a joyful ride. I had never been more confident, really. And so we get home, she runs inside the house and she says, "Mommy, you're not going to believe what happened. They asked Daddy if he would run the Chicago Marathon." This was in February, keep in mind. They asked Daddy if he would run the marathon on October 13th for Girls on the Run. And my wife looked at me and she said, "Please tell me you didn't." Anthony, tell me you did not commit to running a marathon. And I was like, well, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And we had some friends over for dinner that night, and when they heard what was happening, they literally laughed at me. They said, "Anthony, you better find your way out of this. There's no way that you can do this." Well, for those of you that know me and you've heard a little bit of my story, you know that's all it took. That's all it took. So let me share with you the kind of family that I come from. You see, I was born in Chicago. I'm a first-generation American. But my parents were born in Cuba. They had a beautiful life in Cuba. But when they were teenagers, they were forced out of Cuba by men with rifles, all in the name of communism. They were given an option to either stay and work on what was now going to be their farm, or they could leave. See, I come from the kind of family that had the courage to do the right thing and leave. When they left, they went to Spain, and my mom tells me that often their meals consisted of ketchup and crackers. And from Spain, they were placed in the city of Chicago with nothing more than a dream, not even the language, and just a few dollars in their pocket. Enough money to buy a car jack to fix flat tires. That's what my family did growing up. They fixed flat tires. But from the outside looking in, you may say to yourself, what an awful situation. But in the conversations that I had with my grandparents and my mother, they say just the opposite. It wasn't an awful situation. As a matter of fact, those were the best years of their life. They knew that they were in the United States of America, the greatest country on earth, where if you dream it, you can become it. If you don't like your circumstances, you can change them. This was a country that rewarded hard work. It rewarded integrity. It rewarded doing the right thing for others. They knew that they were in the right place at just the right time, and they went to work immediately, fixing flat tires and more often than anybody else, 364 days a year. See, that's the kind of family that I come from. Let me share with you a story that I find myself sharing more often today than I ever have. When I was 9 years old, after fixing tires, flat tires, and doing oil changes, my uncle, instead of going home, he took a different direction with me. And I asked him, I said, "Tío, where are we going? ¿Para dónde vamos?" And I'll never forget, he said, "Te quiero enseñar algo. I want to show you something." We ended up amongst the big buildings of downtown Chicago on a busy intersection with floods of people crossing the streets. And I'll never forget, I asked him again, 9-year-old Anthony, wondering, what are we doing here, Theo? And I remember he said, Tony, he called me Tony, he said, "Tony, look around. Look at all the beautiful people, he called them. People dressed like you and I. And he said, now look at me. And when I looked at him, you have to understand, to 9-year-old Anthony, my uncle was larger than life. A big man. He had a tear in his eye. I never saw my uncle with a tear in his eye. And he said, look at me. He said, do you know why I have oil on my hands, underneath my nails? Why I have oil on my face, on my clothes? So that you don't have to. So that you don't have to, he said. My uncle passed away 6 years ago from a heart attack at the age of 50, an unexpected heart attack. So I don't know that he ever knew the impact that day had on 9-year-old Anthony. But you see, that's the kind of family that I come from. My uncle was telling me that day that I had the mindset of a champion, and that there was nothing that I couldn't do if I just set my mind to it. So you can imagine when my friends and my wife started laughing at me, telling me there was no way I was going to run this marathon. That is all it took. I went to work immediately. I found the one person who believed in me, my daughter, and we printed up the Couch to Marathon in 32 weeks. Like any person who starts a new goal, we ordered 15 things from Amazon that night. We had Amazon coming for days. But we went to work immediately the very next day. I began with 2 miles. And that 2 miles, by the end of the week, turned into 4 miles. And the reward for running 4 miles was running 8 miles. And then reality. After week 1, I was feeling real good. Real good. I remember thinking to myself, wow, this isn't so hard. I think I'm going to be able to do this. More people should do this. It's not so hard. But then reality sets in, because you see, there's a lot that the program Couch to Marathon doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you that as you begin to get up to 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 18 miles, that your training times go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 hours every other day. And it doesn't tell you that the only way you can do 3 to 5 hours of training every other day as a working adult with children is to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. And it doesn't tell you that in Florida, in the middle of the summer at 4:30, it's often raining. And that you should consider it a blessing to run in the rain at 4:30 in the morning. It doesn't tell you that perhaps you're going to get sick or injured and you're going to miss days of training. Doesn't tell you that the program doesn't stop and that you're going to have to work twice as hard to catch up. Students in the room, you can relate. You can relate when you got your acceptance letter to USF. That was a glorious day for you, right? You were celebrating with your family, but there's a lot that letter didn't tell you. It didn't tell you that when you go to apply for classes, they're not going to be at your ideal times, and that the classes that you want most likely will not be available. Right? Or that when you get to campus, parking is going to be almost impossible. I got an amen in the front of that. It didn't tell you that perhaps there's going to be periods where money runs short and you may have to get a job, or that you may be sick and miss class one day. It didn't tell you that you're going to have to work twice as hard to catch up. But I applaud you because you're seated here today. That tells me that you're committed. You're committed to running the marathon, that you're learning a lot through this process. I'd submit to you that you're going to learn as much outside of the classroom about yourself as you are in the classroom. At least that's been my experience running this marathon. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself, and I'd like to share with you a couple points. The first is this, and that's that you have to show up. They say that if you can just show up to the starting line, you've already run half the race. That's encouraging, isn't it? But the problem is a lot of people won't show up. Because here's what I'll tell you. The mood that you were in when you made the commitment is not going to be the mood you're in when it's time to keep that commitment. Right? But I would submit to you that if you would just show up, that's what I say to myself every morning at 4:30, Anthony, get your clothes on and just get out of the house. If you can just get your clothes on and get out of the house, something good is going to happen. And it never failed. Something good always happened. There were times where it was raining, and I decided I almost wanted to go back inside, but I knew if I just started taking some steps, good was going to happen. Which is my second point. Keep moving forward. So you've shown up to the starting line, you began the race. It's a little harder than you think it's going to be. Keep moving forward. Continue putting one foot in front of the other. There are people in this audience who have experienced trials in life that most of us could never imagine. And if they could come up here on this stage, right here, right now, they themselves would tell you to keep putting one foot forward in front of the other, because they are living a life that's full of purpose. They are impacting positively the lives of others because they continued to put one foot in front of the other, no matter what life threw at them. The third is this. You have to have a champion mindset, because you are going to need it. You are going to need it, because I can promise you this. The only way to enjoy the downhill is to work the uphill. There's no other way around it. And I can tell you there's times in that uphill that it's going to seem impossible. There were times that I wanted to throw in the towel. There's a time and it comes in all different ways and shapes and sizes, this uphill. Mine recently came in the form of a text message that I'd like to read you. This was just a few weeks ago. This was a text message from my father. I had called him the night before the day of running a long run. And I was telling him how the next day I had to run 18 miles or whatever, and I was expressing some frustration to him. And when we hung up, he sent me this text message. He says, Anthony, every study shows that running long distances the way that you are doing it is not healthy. You are overdoing it. You have nothing to prove to anyone. Please give up. I can tell you I responded, I typed and deleted at least 15 different responses to that, because none of them seemed appropriate to send to my father. I finally settled on this. I said, Papi, I love you. Thank you for your concern. And today I'm here to celebrate something with you. I'm here to celebrate something with you because, see, I took that fuel. I allowed that uphill to fuel me. And every day after that, I continue to allow that to fuel me. Every day running and continuing to work the marathon, and I'm here to celebrate something with you. I recently just completed the longest part of the marathon, the longest part of the training program. The peak of the training program calls for you to complete 21 miles. Because the experts say if you can run 21 miles, you will surely be able to run 26.2 when it comes to race day. How about a round of applause for me, guys? I ran 21 miles. I'm going to take that applause with me through the finish line in 12 days. Keep the applause going for those of you who are going to continue to run your marathon. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Come on. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I free to leave? Come.
Thank you, Anthony. That was a wonderful, wonderful, inspiring speech. And this is a preview of your marathon. We're going to give you this Hispanic Heritage Service Award, and we know you're going to succeed in this. And we're going to want to see some pictures.
Yes,
of you with the
yes.
medal and
of course.
Your hands raised. Thank
I love
you so
it.
much
Thank you.
for your time and everything
Thank
you've
you.
done and continue to do.
Thank you.